Welcome in, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen, and today we are going to be talking about the defensive players that I have on my short list for the Rams. Before we dive into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Also, be sure to follow me on all social media, including Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Kick at JKBogan. And in addition to that, just want to let you guys know that today's sponsor is Prize Picks. And with Prize Picks right now, they have a gimme. We've talked about a lot of different gimmies. You got to get in on the Super Bowl. Everybody is going to get in on the Super Bowl. You got to have some reason to want to watch this game, right? I mean, this is another Super Bowl rematch. We've had 4 Super Bowl different matchups since, 2015, 2016? So if you find yourself struggling to be motivated to watch this game, be sure to check out Prize Picks. Use this gimme. It is Patrick Mahomes. He just needs to throw 1 yard. He's obviously going to do that. Use the code JKBogan to get started today. Play a $5 lineup. Right now, obviously the Super Bowl isn't for 2 weeks, but if you play a $5 lineup tonight, let's just say the NBA is going on, the NHL is going on, all of that, you can go and use that $5 lineup. Use the code JKBogan. You're going to get $50 instantly. Okay, instantly, whether you win or lose. So be sure to check out Prize Picks today. All right, guys. We are talking about the defense, defensive juice, if you will. Now, we talked about the offense, and obviously people were like, hey, I don't like this guy or this guy or this guy. Well, I got more names for you to have an issue with. So buckle up. Let's get started. We're going to do the honorable mentions just like we did last time. Again, this is my top 10 for the Rams specifically. This does not necessarily mean that it is the top 10 in free agency. So if you're watching this as not a Rams fan and you comment below and say, where's Javon Holland? I'm going to tell you the Rams don't need a safety. I would not pay $14 million, average annual value for a safety when you have Quentin Lake, Cam Curl, Cameron Kinchins, and Jalen McCullough all under contract. So here we go. Honorable mention, we start off with a former draft crush of mine, Peyton Turner out of Houston. He's not on the Houston Texans. He's coming off his last season with the New Orleans Saints in all likelihood. He just never got a footing in New Orleans. Former first-round pick, and, he's 26 years old. I just think, going back to 2021, I remember wanting him so badly to fall into the second round for the Rams. I would absolutely take a cheap flyer on him. That body composition for that position. I think he's a guy that can really play 4-3 or 3-4. Could potentially be a cheaper option to take over for Michael Hoyt, but I do feel like at least one team is thinking this. So he might actually have a market. Who knows? But this guy really hasn't done anything in the NFL. That said, he's got athleticism. I think the Rams coaching, I think very highly of them. I just say let him go to Joe Caniglio or let him go with Gift Smith, and let's just see what happens. And he might not make the team. He might make the team. He might be a key contributor. He might blow up and end up being a superstar. We have seen guys in the past that fall into this line where they're drafted by maybe the wrong team, the wrong fit, all of that. And then they go on and they find a fit, and then they end up exploding because they have the talent. But let's just say, you have guys, like a Cam Jordan, who never retired, right? So that obviously changed things there. And, the Saints have some other guys as well. So, I just think that maybe there was just never an opportunity for him, and there could be somewhere else, and maybe that's with the Rams, maybe it's not, but he's an honorable mention. In addition to that, another honorable mention, former Ram, Bobby Wagner, who's going to be 35 this year. If the Rams feel like Omar Speights is going to be special, but they need to give him some sort of mentor just for 1 year like they did with Ernest Jones, Bobby Wagner. How about let's just start with that. Now, I'm not signing Bobby Wagner to just play mentor, okay? This is a guy who's still one of the best linebackers in all of football. I mean, really. And what he did this year for the Commanders, it showed. I think having a guy like that in the middle is just special. Now, I understand why some Rams fans might be like, all right, that didn't go well in 2022. They were bruised and battered with injuries all over this all season. Okay, so I am not going to blame that on Bobby Wagner. I understand the optics may not look great. 35 years old. They're trying to get younger, moving on from Cooper Kupp, and bringing in Bobby Wagner would be weird. But look, he's still one of the best linebackers in football. If you could get him at a decent price, not saying you would, but if you could, he would make a lot of sense as just his play style. And then in addition to that, having him mentor Omar Speights. This is an honorable mention because I don't think it's going to happen. And I am worried about Father Time because Father Time is undefeated. And it's not about a matter of if, it's a matter about when. And Bobby Wagner was fantastic last year, but sometimes these things happen quickly and there's just a massive drop off almost instantaneously. You just hit a wall. So is he going to be like Tom Brady where he just gradually declines and it doesn't really look noticeable? Or is he just going to fall off a cliff? That remains to be seen, but I don't necessarily want to be the guy paying him if he does end up falling off a cliff next season. All right. Honorable mention, last one here, Avonte Maddox from the Eagles, 29 years old. This upcoming season, I think he'd be a nice fit for the slot. Kind of similar in the vein of like a Troy Hill, guy that can really help you in run support, could be cheap. A lot of people have just forgotten about him, but I think he's still a quality player, and that's why he comes in as an honorable mention. So now we move on to the top 10, and they're not in order. They're just, kind of grouped by position. So full disclosure here, no safeties. I already mentioned that. We're going to have some corners, quite a few edge defenders, and we're going to have a lot of linebackers, not a lot of defensive linemen. I went through and I went painstaking details looking through who makes sense for the Rams. And I only came up with two corners. And we'll start off with the first one here, who I think would be a beautiful fit for them because they don't have to just sacrifice signing a Kello Witherspoon back. They don't have to sacrifice cutting a Darius Williams. I think a guy like Nate Hobbs from the Raiders, he's going to be 26 this year, 51 games, 38 starts, 281 tackles, 14 tackles for a loss, 3 sacks and 3 interceptions, as well as 19 pass breakups. He's 6'1", $195, and he's a former 5th-round pick from the 2021 class. His tape, to me, he's a tape darling, okay? I'm not saying he's got incredible stats, albeit he's been playing on the Raiders. I don't think he has incredible stats, but I look at him as a slot guy, and I look at him as a guy that can help you in the box. If you want to move Kobe Durant outside permanently, Hobbs, to me, his ability in the nickel is just valuable. I mean, this is a physical guy who's great in run support, doesn't take any business decisions, if you know what I mean, and is going to stick his face in the fan and actually make a play. He's going to sift through the trash all in the middle of the field, and he's going to find his way to the ball carrier. If you go back and you watch that game, Week 7, Rams-Raiders, you can understand where I'm coming from. Nate Hobbs is going to be a player that the Rams at least have on a big board for guys that they might be interested in. I'm not saying he'll be a Ram, but I'm saying it's hard to watch that game in Week 7 going up against that team and say to yourself, yeah, I don't think the Rams will be interested. Oh, they will absolutely be interested. Still a young player, good size, can play on the outside, but mainly is going to work on the inside. And when you look at the game against the Eagles last weekend, and I'm still somewhat not over it, Saquon Barkley on those runs, there wasn't really run support to be had. And I feel like if you go back and you look, this is Nate Hobbs here that I think he could do a really nice job. He had a few of those plays where he's on the other side of the field, comes over and just absolutely stacks up Kyren Williams on a toss play going the opposite direction. He does a really nice job, like I said, of sifting through the trash. What does that mean? I'm not calling players trash. I'm saying that there is a lot of traffic in an NFL game, on an NFL rep, on an NFL snap. And especially when you're tossing it to the left side and you have all the offensive linemen trying to be a convoy and block to the left side, you got all these wide receivers in your way and even your own players in your way. And he just has a really good, idea of what he needs to do. He takes the proper angles. So I think Nate Hobbs could be a weapon because they could just put him right in the slot or just throw him in the box and he could be a true run supportive weapon. But in addition to that, I like him in coverage too. And I think if he had the secondary that the Rams had, behind him, I think you could see some really good things out of Hobbs. So I like Hobbs here, not Walter Hobbs from Elf, but Nate Hobbs here. I really do like him. I think he'd make a lot of sense. This is a guy that I looked at, during the trade deadline. If the Rams are trying to find somebody that really fits, every time they talk about the embodiment of being a Ram and what that means and what they look for, Nate Hobbs is that. You talk about corners all the time and you think corners, they don't care about tackling. Hobbs cares about tackling. He wears that on his chest, and you can see it after the game. He's always got a dirty jersey because he is not afraid to go out and make a play. So Nate Hobbs comes in at 10. Number 9 here is the last corner on this list, and I'll be honest with you, I am going to say this, and people are going to say that I'm biased, but the reality is, at 6'4", running a 4.3, what Ahkello Witherspoon is able to do on a football field and what he did down the stretch for the Rams this year, I just could not find any corners like him. That's the thing. He's like a unicorn. I mean, find me another guy that moves as well as he does. Find me another guy that actually cares and is able to be a leader and communicate. I just don't know if you can find anybody in this free agency class. And I know people bring up DJ Reed, but they bring up DJ Reed because as much as I like him, he's a big name. He's 5'9". Like, people forget about how good he is. They forget about the fact he's not at all the same corner. It's the same thing with Charvarius Ward. It's the same thing with a lot of these corners that are brought up. I mean, the only one that's even comparable in any sense is a 35-year-old Stephon Gilmore, and I still don't feel like they're very similar. So that was my issue and why I don't have more corners on this roster. It's because I think that the Rams are likely going to go young. If they go after anybody, they're going to go young and likely go after guys that can tackle and maybe play in the slot. But this next guy can play on the boundary, and I think he gives them a real shot if they don't bring back Ahkello Witherspoon or they move on from Darius Williams and the plan is let's just keep Kobe in the slot. Well, I'll tell you right now, Paulson Adebo from Stanford, 26 years old this year, 52 games, 51 starts, 254 tackles, 43 pass breakups, 2 forced fumbles, and 10 interceptions, a 6'1", 182-pound body, and he's a former third-round pick in 2021 by the Saints. He's one of the better, more underrated young corners in the league. He was 13th among all qualified starters and, in targeted passer rating in man coverage last year, 26th in zone coverage last year. And with the Rams kind of doing a little bit of both down the stretch, a lot more. You saw more man coverage. Obviously, it could have been the matchups, but you saw more man coverage than maybe you're used to. I think Adebo makes a lot of sense there. And then, this past year, Adebo breaks his leg, misses the rest of the season. So I think that value, while he could have easily made over $10 million a year because he's a young, really successful and productive corner, his value is going to be low enough where I think this makes it an intriguing option for the Rams. And I'll be honest with you, if there was a way to make this happen and you wanted to get young at corner, I'd 100% bring back Ahkello because I like the idea of having different options. You get a 6'4", wingspan, all that crazy stuff, crazy athlete, physical, put AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Devontae Smith in essentially a blanket, locked him up. In the postseason. I want a guy that's going to play like that. I also want Cody Durant on the field because I love that scrappy nature, but I also wouldn't mind, and I like D-Will, but he's getting up there. He's going to be 32 this year. They have some guaranteed money that will kick in if he is on the roster, I believe the 5th day of the new year. Paulson Adebo, if they could get him cheap, that might be the move to go with Ahkello Witherspoon and Cody Durant. Then you take care of that. You could draft a corner, yes, but maybe you don't decide to do that. Now, if Kobe does leave, now Emmanuel Forbes gets a chance to maybe be that slot guy and take over down the stretch. So that's how I feel. I think Adebo would make a lot of sense if they move on from D-Will. And I think Nate Hobbs makes a lot of sense if they're trying to move Kobe to the outside and they want a slot corner. I think Hobbs is a great fit. So both of them come in on this list. We'll keep an eye at how that works out. Adebo's broken leg does concern me. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, he'll be totally fine. There's going to be nothing to worry about. They did also pay Tre'Davious White coming off a torn Achilles. So it's not like they're completely out of the possibility of paying somebody that was already hurt. Moving on, we have Darrell Taylor, who the Rams know pretty well, 28 years old this year, former Seattle Seahawks, second-round pick in 2020. He has 65 games under his belt, only 13 starts, 123 tackles, 24 and a half sacks, 7 forced fumbles, and 121 pressures. He's 6'4", 255, 11.1 pass rush win rate this past year, and 12th in run stop percentage among edge defenders. I think when you talk about what Michael Hoyt brings to the table, I don't know if there's anybody in this free agency class that is going to do what he's able to do, and that's why. Let me make this very clear. I am totally fine running it back with the same exact defense, and I think people should be too. The issue was the offense. It's why that they're not playing in the Super Bowl. The defense is not the reason. I mean, you could say 286 rushing yards to Saquon Barkley is a problem, but when push came to shove, the defense got that stop at the end, gave the offense a chance with plenty of time, and they fell 14 yards short. Okay, so we'll keep talking about that, but that's why I'm not against bringing back Roseboom. I'm not against bringing back Hoyt, Kello, all those guys. I want them all back. But I also understand how this is a business. I also understand how this could be perceived. The Eagles just blew out the Commanders. They scored 55 points on them. They dominated the Packers, and yet when push came to shove, the Rams were the team that hung around. You could argue by the end of the season, the Rams were one of the 4 best teams in the league, and that game in the divisional round was for the NFC title game. I would say pretty much that was for the NFC title, and we all knew it. Not to take anything away from the Commanders, but they were really banged up, and I think the Rams just were a nightmare matchup for them when I really felt about it. So when you have that defense that is playing at that level, why are we in a hurry to, displace all these guys? And I'm not. But what I am saying is if they lose Michael Hoyt and he gets paid out the wazoo and they're like, hey, you're not really one of our starters. You're in the cheetah package. We use you, as another guy. You're an important piece, but you're not Jared Verse, right? If they do that, Darrell Taylor makes sense from the Bears. I like his game. I like that he's well-rounded. He's not an overly explosive pass rusher, but he has sack production, and he's not a dominant run defender, but he's pretty damn good at stopping the run, setting the edge. So Darrell Taylor at 28 years old, what is that going to look like? Is he going to get paid a lot? It depends, but I don't think so. So I think he'd be an interesting option there. And then I got to bring up my guy. I mean, you guys know, there are players that I just fall in love with, and I swear to this day, they're either being held back, their stats don't match how good they are, their stats do match how good they are, but again, they're being held back, they're in a bad situation, all of that. One of those players is Joshua Uche, who's going to be 27 years old this year, 64 games, only 4 starts, 86 tackles, 20 and a half sacks, 138 pressures. He's 6'3", 240, okay? Former second-round pick out of Michigan in 2020. He's the guy I wanted the Rams to get. This is another year of me advocating for the underrated Uche. I wish the Rams got him last year. I think just having him as a situational pass rusher would have been great. He was tied for 22nd this year in win rate, pass rush win rate in 2024, 64th with Michael Hoyt in 2023, and 6th in 2022. He's been barely used since the Chiefs acquired him at the deadline from the New England Patriots. He had 56 pressures in 2022. I think he's worth taking a flyer on because the problem is, going back to his days with Michigan, I think, a lot of people looked at him, including me. They looked at him as kind of like that Uchenna Nwosu guy that could be off-ball linebacker but can also rush the passer. And I think Joshua Uche has kind of shown you that he's more of just a pure pass rusher. He wins one-on-one. Obviously, being 6th of all edge defenders in 2022 in win rate is insane. And the guy only has 4 legitimate starts in his career. I just feel like if you lose Michael Hoyt, or even if you don't lose Michael Hoyt, if you were able to get Uche in, who's barely playing right now, regardless if they win the Super Bowl or not, Uche doesn't have incredible value. okay? And he is getting up there in age, although 27 is still young, but he's not 24, right? So I think he's going to be relatively cheap, and I think the Rams need to jump at that. I love Brennan Jackson, want to see him get an opportunity, but if you go into the season with, say, you bring back Michael Hoyt and you have Josh Uche, or you lose Michael Hoyt, you bring in Josh Uche, and then you have Brennan Jackson, you have Keir Thomas, and maybe you bring in another guy via the draft, you have to feel pretty good about that room. Now, understandably so, there are people that believe that edge is not a need, and they have two starters and you feel good about them. And I'm not trying to upgrade over Byron Young, because while he's not Jared Verse, he's still really damn good. And he might not end up being a long-term future piece. He might not. But the point is, right now, for the first time in a while, the Rams don't have a need at edge as far as a starting edge defender. What they do need is, if Hoyt goes, if he leaves, they're going to need some depth there. Nick Hampton coming off an injury. They already moved on from O'Shawn Mathis in that draft a few years back. So now, they've already moved on from that guy. Then now Nick Hampton, and, he deals with the injury. And Keir Thomas, he looked great in the postseason. Does he make the 53? Brennan Jackson. So I think you have to kind of add at least one more guy, maybe even two. Uche makes too much sense. I just think this is a guy that's just not getting played for some reason. He's just not being given playing time. And I think on the Rams, he could do a lot. Another guy that I think could do a lot on the Rams, 61 games, 19 starts, 106 tackles, 16 and a half sacks, 21 tackles for loss, 108 pressures, standing at 6'6", 280 pounds, 286 pounds, former second rounder in 2021. Dayo Odeyingbo. I totally butchered that name. Dayo Odeyingbo, the 26-year-old pass rusher from the Colts. He didn't fully start until 2024. That was his best year. I think he's an option to replace Michael Hoyt. Now, understand this. What Michael Hoyt does is that he's great as a run defender, okay? He's great as a run defender. He's great as a pass rusher. He's great on special teams. He is a unicorn in that sense. There just aren't many guys like him. I don't know if Darrell Taylor will be as good if they bring him in as a pass rusher. I don't know if he'll be as good as a special teamer, right? I don't know if Uche is going to be as good as a run defender or a special teamer, and I definitely don't believe Dayo is going to be a better run defender than Hoyt, and I definitely don't think he'll be a better special teamer than Hoyt. So Hoyt is a need, in my opinion. You got to bring him back, but if they don't and you want some juice, they might retool what they're doing if Hoyt doesn't come back. This is an explosive rusher that had over 40 pressures this past season. He has kind of been a little bit of a late bloomer in his NFL career, and at the same time, he really hasn't gotten that much usage up until his final 2 years. I think Odeyingbo could be huge for the Rams. Imagine you put him in on those rushing downs and you just let him eat. I don't know how much it's going to cost. I could see him getting paid a lot because he's 26 and he's an explosive pass rusher, and those guys typically make money. But if it comes to the second or third wave and he hasn't signed yet, I think he makes a lot of sense for the Rams. Keep an eye on Dayo Odeyingbo, the edge defender from the Colts. All right, we have now reached the last five here. Number 5, not in order, but this is how we do it anyway. Going to be 27 years this year out of Washington, 42 games, 10 starts, 68 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 45 pressures in 2024 alone. The 6'3", 290 second round pick in 2021 that I wanted so badly, Levi Onwuzurike from the Detroit Lions. He missed all of 2022 with a back injury. He didn't really get a chance to start until 2024, and he had 45 pressures. So if the Rams want more juice in the interior of their defensive line, Levi makes a lot of sense. You talk about having Braden Fisk and Kobe Turner and Ty Davis, potentially bringing back Bobby Brown, and then having a guy like Onwuzurike, who I think is also a good run run defender. He's not Bobby Brown, but he is a good run defender. If they lose Bobby Brown, I could see them pivoting in a different direction. Onwuzurike is just getting better and better. He hasn't had a ton of playing time. So while he'll be 27 this year, it's like he's basically 24, 25, just not a lot on his not a lot on his tires, like not a lot of wear and tear on him. So I like Levi a lot. I liked him coming out of the draft. I thought he was a can't miss first round pick. And when he fell, I was a little bit surprised. But that said, I think the Rams could be interested. I'm not saying they'll get him, but it's really going to be interesting to see how they do things. Because I'll tell you right now, I might even do a separate video. Tyler Davis, from the Clemson Tigers, he had himself a very good year. When you talk about just not a lot of snaps, but making the most of it, it was really impressive what Ty Davis was able to do. So I keep an eye on that. And I also want to say this. There's not a guy that I would take over Bobby Brown. So I want to make that very clear. Like Akello, like Hoyt, you could say, like, we're going to talk about linebackers soon. As much as I like Roseboom, and I really do like him, you can upgrade there. Bobby Brown is the youngest interior defensive lineman on the market, okay? He's 24 right now. And in addition to that, the type of play style he is, like he's kind of like a nose at this point. You don't have many guys that can stop the run like him, that didn't give up a missed tackle in almost 500 snaps this regular season. You don't have any of that in this class. Tyler Tart is a guy that I looked at, but he has a missed tackle problem. He's great against the run, like he gets in the way, but he misses a lot of tackles. I just don't think it makes any sense to let him go unless he's asking for the world, and then you just don't have a choice. But that's the thing, and that's why I don't have anybody to replace him, because if they just let him go, well, I just draft somebody, because I don't think any of these guys are worth paying over him. So Onwuzurike would just be another guy in that rotation in the interior that could rush, and he wouldn't be as good of a run defender. Ty Davis, while a lot of people think Tyler Davis is going to replace Bobby Brown, you got it all wrong. Tyler Davis isn't Bobby Brown. He's nothing like him. He's not the big, bulky guy. If anything, he's more like Braden Fisk. He plays like that Aaron Donald style, where you're talking about kind of that nimble, quick-footed guy, explosive, can run sideline to sideline like the athletic freak that they are. But also, like, these are guys that can help you in the run game, but they can also help you in the pass game. And they don't really let Bobby Brown rush. So while I do believe he could have like 6 sacks in a season if they let him actually rush the passer, he's so vital in the run game that I wouldn't be so quick to just say, yeah, that's why we drafted Tyler Davis. Tyler Davis is not anything like Bobby Brown. I just want to make that very clear. He's more like Braden Fisk than Bobby Brown. So they are going to have a need there if they move on from him. Is that, I don't know what that is. So that's the thing there. But Levi, he comes in at 5, and now we're in the linebackers. We wrap it up with 4 linebackers here that I just kind of caught my eye. I understand these guys have some weaknesses. They do. Quite a few of them, they have tackling concerns. Okay. And the Rams deal with that too. So let's start off with number 4 here. Cody Barton, who's the oldest on this entire list at 29 years of age in November. Barton has played in 95 games, 43 starts, 458 tackles, 3.5 sacks, 5 interceptions. He's standing at 6'2", 237. And he's one of the best tackling linebackers in the game today. He's great against the run. He takes great angles. He's the former 3rd-round pick by the Seahawks in 2019 out of Utah. He didn't start until 2022. Okay, so this guy really didn't get a chance until much later on, and he arguably had his best year this past year. So if Roseboom is not brought back, Cody Barton, that athleticism and everything on full display, he should be affordable because he's not 25, 26 years old with the production. And if he is, I think he's a good replacement for Roseboom. I think you get a guy who, yeah, he's a little bit older, but he's kind of that same vein, athletic, although he is a fantastic tackler. We're talking about top 5 in the league at linebacker. So Interesting player here, played with the Broncos, really good defense and all. We'll see if they go in this direction, but Barton, keep an eye on him. I think he's a really good fit for the Rams. Number 3 is Tyrel Dodson. Yes, I'm bringing him back. I talked about him last year, wanted him on the Rams last year, went to the Seahawks. Seahawks didn't want him. They traded him for Ernest Jones, and then he ended up, for whatever reason, he ended up on the Dolphins. 76 games, 27 starts, 250 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 3 interceptions. He stands at 6 foot, 237 pounds. When we talk about one of the best tackling linebackers in the league, and Barton, Dodson is one of the best coverage linebackers in the game. Period. Undrafted in 2019. I think he's a really good option if Roseboom is not brought back, just his ability in coverage alone. This is one of the best coverage linebackers in football. He is a very, very good linebacker. I still think he's very underrated. I know PFF ranked him as one of the top last year, and then this year maybe he wasn't ranked as high, but in coverage he certainly was. Yeah, this is somebody that I would really be interested in the Rams grabbing. I don't think they're going to pay top dollar to linebackers, but Dodson and Barton to me will fall kind of under the radar because you have bigger linebacker names, like you have a Greenlaw and we'll get to some others, but yeah, I like them both, and so they both made the list. Second to last, but not last, Nick Bolton, who you'll watch in the Super Bowl. He's 25 years of age, 57 games, 53 starts, 458 tackles, 5 sacks, 4 interceptions. A little bit shorter, 5'11" at 237. Sideline to sideline linebacker, if there ever was one. He's a good coverage linebacker. He was drafted 1 pick ahead of Tutu Atwell in that draft. Big game experience. He's obviously played in some Super Bowls. My concern, because I know a lot of people are going to say, oh yeah, Nick Bolton, bring it to me. The problem with Bolton, he's 25. He is going to be expensive. He's going to be expensive. He is one of the younger, really talented players in this free agency class, and I just don't see the Rams shelling out money to the linebacker spot. I just don't. I think the most they'd be willing to go is probably $7 to $8 million per year. So I don't necessarily think Bolton is in that range. I think he gets 14, maybe even more. The things Bolton can do on a down-and-down basis, I mean, he's going to get paid. And Bolton does have some issues in tackling. He does, miss a lot of tackles, but he does a lot of things very well. He still can make the big tackle. It's not like he can't tackle. It's that he has some misses that maybe you would not want to see. Bolton's just a really smart player, really athletic, and I don't know if the Chiefs are going to let him go. If they do, I wouldn't be surprised, but Bolton is a big part of Steve Spagnuolo's defense that you will see in the Super Bowl, and he's a big reason they won that Super Bowl last year against the 49ers. I'm not going to say he's completely out of it. I just don't think the Rams necessarily are going to be willing to go that expensive. That said, Bolton is a fit. He's a good fit, and I would definitely like him in horns. Last but not least, and honestly, he's my favorite on this list here, Jamien Sherwood. 25 years of age, 56 games, 23 starts, 235 tackles, 2.5 sacks. This is a safety that was converted to linebacker. What does that sound like? Mark Barron, anybody? But he didn't start until 2024. So this past year, he finally gets to start. He leads the NFL in solo tackles his first year as a starting linebacker, over 1,000 snaps. Really was a leader for this team. He's if you talk to Jets fans, this is one of the biggest names they want to make sure is brought back, okay? Jets fans know this guy has some serious talent. They have a gem here. And I think Sherwood is going to fly under the radar a bit. I do think different coaches, like I think Robert Saleh going back to the 49ers, I could see the 49ers interested, move on from Dre Greenlaw, bring in Jamien Sherwood. I could absolutely see that. I could see some other coaches that have left the Jets to go after Sherwood. My biggest thing here is that this is a sideline-to-sideline linebacker, one of the best coverage linebackers in the game because he has that defensive background. And I just think when you watch him, he'd be such a nice duo with Omar Speights. He's that guy that, he's 25. You could pay him maybe 3 years, 4 years, whatever. I don't think it's going to break the bank. I think he's going to fly under the radar. And if you move on from Roseboom and you bring back most of the guys you bring back on the defense, you add Sherwood. I mean, this would be one of the best defenses in football yet again. I just think the things that you can do with Sherwood, the things that, Chris Shula would do, the blitzing, he can kind of just drop him into coverage. You can isolate him on a running back. I mean, he's just really, really good. And I just think that Sherwood is kind of the underrated gem. Like, if you're talking about the last thing I said on the list of offensive players, that underrated gem to me is Josh Palmer. Jamien Sherwood is super, super underrated. He does not get talked about. I would say he's one of the more valuable players in this free agency class. And I just think when you look at just the way he's able to take angles, if you replaced Roseboom with Sherwood, the Rams are in the Super Bowl. And it's because of his ability to take those angles. I'm not saying he's going to 100% be able to bring down Saquon Barkley with ease. But what I am saying is that he is going to get to that angle. He is going to chauffeur him out of bounds, or he's going to get there in time for a gang tackle to happen. I just don't think that you get those big explosive plays if you have a Jamien Sherwood in the middle of your defense. I don't think you necessarily have the same result with Nick Bolton, because I think Bolton is likely going to fly off him because he's not as big as, say, a Saquon Barkley. But Sherwood also isn't that big. That's the issue here. He's 6'2", 216, but I just love his form. I think this guy just knows how to tackle, and then you're getting just his ability as a coverage guy. I think he just could be so huge for this defense. And again, watching, everyone talks about the defensive line. Oh, we got to get a defensive line, whatever. When they run those stretch runs, okay, and you see a Ty Davis get tugged from behind, well, now, if they don't call that, which they didn't against Saquon Barkley, and I'm not barking about it, I'm not saying anything, saying that that needs to be called, I'm not saying that they had the game taken away from them, but let's just be honest here. That call should have been made. It wasn't. So now, if that's not called, it's not, oh, we're screwed. It's you need to have a guy that is going to make the play because the play isn't dead. Okay, that's not getting called back. You have to be able to stop him. And so if you had a Sherwood in the middle of that defense, I think Sherwood does stop him. He had a few of those plays this year where you saw he had to run a long way and he made the tackle. The irony is that he ran a 4.7 40, and so that's why he kind of moved from defensive back to linebacker. But it is a reminder, and this is important, running from the middle of the field to the sideline, or as we say, sideline to sideline, it's not the 40-yard dash, okay? And in addition to that, when you're a linebacker, you don't really have to run the 40-yard dash as much as, say, a defensive back. So we get caught up in these 40 times. We don't talk about this explosive, the short area quickness. And that is the thing that Jamien Sherwood possesses. So I'm not saying the Rams are going to shell out money to spend on a linebacker. They might even be better off drafting one. But what I am saying is that Jamien Sherwood offers something, because if you have a problem, you have to know what you have to do to fix it. Going out and getting a linebacker who takes better angles than Roseboom and is going to be able to make that play is going to fix that problem. So I'm not saying Roseboom was horrible, but there were moments where they just simply didn't have the guys. And I also would blame Shula, because I think there were times when they tried these run blitzes. They did it in week 12 against the Eagles, and it was the same thing, kind of, this all-out, run blitz and then easy. So it's not all on Roseboom, and I'm not trying to say it is, but if we're upgrading any part of this defense, it's not safety, it's not corner, it's not defensive line, it's not edge, it's linebacker. And Jamien Sherwood, to me, is the best fit for the Rams at linebacker. Nick Bolton's the bigger name. He's playing in the Super Bowl. I think Jamien Sherwood would be a perfect fit. Maybe you want to have him add 5 to 10 more pounds, fine. But I want him to keep that explosion. I want him to keep playing the way he is. There's a reason why this guy led the NFL in solo tackles his first year starting at linebacker. We're not talking about combined. We're talking about straight solo. When it's one-on-one, you can trust this guy. And like I said, if you replaced, Roseboom with him for that game against the Eagles, well, the Rams are playing in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. in 2 weeks. I really believe that. So go out, get a guy like that, and move on. But that's all I got for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Really enjoy doing these videos. Every off season I do them because I think, we have to do a good job here on these channels because it is a pain. There's so much information out there, and yet, it's like all of these different lists. See, people go by like, oh, PFF's top 100 or, whoever's top 100 free agent lists. But if you're a Rams fan, right, do you want to sift through all that and kind of put together one in your own head? Or do you want to kind of have something that's, kind of curated based on the team you're following? Do you want to have more of a centralized top 10 that makes sense for the Rams? And that's really what I sought out to do in this video. So hopefully I did that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If I missed anybody that you think 100% should be a favorite, in this top 10 targets or whatever, let me know. And let me know in the comment section also if you want to check out a potential video on trade targets. Because I could also do that too. Never out of the realm of possibility that Les Snead could make a trade. I talk about it all the time. This free agency class is very similar to the MLB free agency class. You got Juan Soto and some really good players and a bunch of guys that are just like, eh. And that's why a lot of teams are trading, right? A lot of teams are trading. Maybe we see something like that. But let me know in the comment section if that's a video that you'd be interested in. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Be sure to check out today's sponsor, Prize Picks. Of course, the code is JK Bogan. The link is in the description below. And have some fun. Maybe we can get you more interested in the big game. We'll see how that goes. But that's going to do it for me. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks. All right, guys, just a quick update here. The lounge, which I've told you guys about after every single video, we are now at 6 videos. We have almost 700 subscribers. So if you haven't gotten in and checked out my new side project, definitely be sure to do that. Interviewing voice actors and athletes and entrepreneurs, musicians, all the good stuff there. Be sure to check it out. The link is in the description below. In case you guys haven't noticed, I do have a Discord channel for my community on this channel. And if you want to be a part of it, it is free. The link is in the description below. You can sign up. This is basically a 24/7 Rams channel, and we are almost at 1,100 members. So if you want to be a part of it, just hit the link in the description below.